Tell me when we're live. What?
Give it just a second here and then it should be good. Like 10 seconds or so.
Alrighty. Okay, are we ready? Call a meeting to order at 6:34. Roll call, Vicky?
Yes.
Derek?
Here.
Alan?
Here.
John?
Here.
Nick?
Here.
Terry?
Here.
And Kristen's here. We had the Pledge of Allegiance in the last meeting. You want to do it again? Okay. Approval of the agenda. So we're looking at the agenda items on here. Okay. I know that we have on the agenda, it says discuss, a 10.5, discuss distance learning plan, and it is on a discussion. Is there any way to move that to an action item if we would happen to make that choice?
It's up to you. At any time during a meeting, if you choose to move it to an action item, you can.
Okay. All right. Do I have an approval of the agenda as presented?
Motion, Derek.
Motion by Derek, second.
I'll second.
Second by John. Roll call vote. Vicky?
Yes.
Derek?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And Christie's a yes. Motion passes. Board reports. Joint Activities Committee. How'd you guys do?
We met as a joint activity meeting on Tuesday morning. Al or Nick, did you want to speak to that, or Derek?
I guess the main topic was to determine what to do with the junior high boys and girls. The athletic directors recommended that in conjunction with other school districts, that the 7th and 8th graders be brought up, form a C team, and play a schedule that would mirror the varsity schedule. They'll get more playing time that way. The season will be longer, and the kids aren't going to get shorted a season versus if they were not going to get pulled up, they'd get the month of January for the girls, month of February for the boys. So we recommended that they pull them up, have the C team, and they'll get equal playing time through the season with like competition.
And then we had some discussions about gyms and availability of gyms and trying to be creative with some gym space and looking into some alternatives for that. And so doing some exploration on that. So looking at that a little bit and also waiting for governor's announcement today on moving the start date for practice with the games to be determined when they can actually start with being able to have games. So I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that came out today that January 4th will be the start date for practice. And then games, they didn't talk about when they can start to compete yet. So that'll be determined in January. Or at a later date, actually. They didn't say when, they just said at a later date. Anything else you guys want to add to that? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that for board reports? Student representative, are they here? No. Okay, Principal Lori?
Under staff development, we have our teachers working on PLC and individual goals. They are also working on grade level scope and sequence with our reading curriculum and the current state standards. A sample of the individual goals include using evidence-based practice to strengthen guided reading groups, becoming more efficient with our phonics program, teaching students how to organize their writing, and creating more interactive lessons. As they work on their individual goals, teachers are working through how to incorporate the goal into each of the 3 learning models that we have for this year, whether it's in-person, hybrid, or distance learning. Under school management and function, our attendance for November was 96.98%. Behavior referrals, we did have a handful of office visits with the childcare students in November, but still very low number. Tier 1 childcare, we have 88 students on the register, and we have about 15 others who are approved for childcare if it is needed. We continue to have the 7 rooms that are set up, continue to have that schedule that allows them to join in for their daily Google Meet sessions. They have active times with multiple recess and gym, hands-on activities and projects, and a lot more going on each day. Christmas with the kids, we did have to be a little bit creative this year. Our first grade students were interviewed through Google Meets for the annual Christmas with the Kids radio interviews. They are being aired daily in December at 9:10 a.m. and 2:17 p.m. on KRJM radio, and that's 101.5. We are celebrating a December to Remember. That is for staff, students, and families. There's a dress-up day for each day in December, and everyone is welcome to participate. Under recognitions, our November Students of the Month, we had kindergarten, Carter Anderson, Carter Drinkwine, Pryor Severson, Briley Omang, Amari Beauchamp. In first grade, we have Trip Clark, Alexis Reller, Forrest Simon, and Kira Madigan. Second grade, Trevor Bevins, Colt Adams, Arissa Bonga, Curtis May, and Kaya Rivera. In third grade, we have Finley Riggle, Dalen Madigan, and Macy Warren. Do you have any questions for me? All right.
I don't believe so. Anybody else have anything? Okay. We'll move on to Eric.
Good evening. Staff development, we establish weekly check-ins as well as our PLCs in response to our teachers wanting more face-to-face time with each other. Very grateful for the teamwork that we've had with Cassandra Hansana on that. PLCs are focused on success criterion, individual growth and development goals, and maintaining rigor via distance learning. School management and function, I do want to thank Mrs. Johnson and the PTSO for providing various activities and the sort for a December to remember. She's done a phenomenal job. She's even made me partake in a couple of the things. So kudos to you, Mrs. Johnson. There are dress-up days and keep our spirits in the right frame of mind. I did include the attendance report and the discipline report. Believe it or not, we do have some discipline going on even via the distance learning. And then for recognitions, congratulations to our 4th grade students of the month, Aubrey Gary, Riley DeMett, Reed Tibbetts, and Max Hoban. Our 5th grade students of the month, Cora MacArthur, Rory Lacka, and Sadie Schneck. Our 6th grade students of the month, Tristan Mertens, Marcus Gary, and Peyton MacArthur Gordon. Jay-Z Van Pelt was our senior student of the month. Jay-Z Van Pelt was also selected as the good student winner by RNJ Broadcasting for the week of November 23rd. And then I did want to state National Special Education Day was commemorated on December 2nd. Originally, it was to commemorate the laws passing in November 2nd, 1972. Any questions for me?
Nope, I don't think anyone has any other questions.
Thank you.
Eric. Okay, moving on next to Assessment and Data Coach Grant Coordinator Charlene Gillis. Do you have any questions on her report? Nothing new to report at this time, and work continues on purchasing and distributing supplies and books ordered through the CLSD grants. Okay. Michelle?
Sorry, wrong button. Okay,
Okay.
I think I'm good now.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just add for Charlene's report, we did, and I just talked to her and Eric about this yesterday, but if you remember previously before the CLSD, which is the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, we had the Striving Readers grant, which is essentially the same. It's our literacy grant, it's our literacy money, but we did get notification towards the end of November that we are getting an additional award. And so I'm guessing that it's a portion of money that was not able to be spent by other districts. And so they're reallocating it. And so essentially we're ending up with about $110 additional $1,000. On top of the small carryover we had, and on top of the new CLSD dollars. So that will continue to build our robust libraries and our digital platforms and things like that that we have going on. So be working closely with Charlene and Eric and Lori to make sure that we get those spent and rolled out in a timely fashion. But that was a surprise, definitely. We're not expecting to get that. So first of all, I just wanted to state the huge impact on impact aid that the recent oh, let me see, what am I looking for? Impact Aid Coronavirus Relief Act that President Trump signed. I'm not sure if you've heard about it or not, but it basically is holding our student counts the same. So we're not required to do a survey this year. We're not required to get source documentation this year. We are only required to roll over our information from last year's application to this year's application. And so when we look at student count and valuation aspects and how that benefits us, this will work, you know, seriously to our advantage. We're down a little bit in our numbers, and so this holds our student counts level, which were good last year. And then with the conditions that we're in with COVID, it'll reduce the significant drop that I would anticipate in student count and revenue based on, you know, layoffs, reservation wide with the RTC, maybe people not being back to work, people moving out of, you know, housing houses. I know that they're redoing a lot of houses right now, things like that. So our numbers were really good last year. So I was a little nervous on just even tracking families and finding them and, you know, finding out where they're at. And I know we've got some families doubling up with each other and things like that. And so I was really thinking that our counts were going to go down and we were going to see a decrease in revenue. So for us, I see this as a huge benefit. And on that note, I would like to recognize and thank Senator Tina Smith, Minnesota. She tremendous leadership in introducing the Impact Aid Coronavirus Relief Act and her work to pass it. We really appreciate her work on behalf of Indian Land Schools and Impact Aid. She's been a dedicated constituent of ours and for the Impact Aid program as a whole. So I thought that was a big deal. I was pretty excited to hear that, and it'll be a huge burden of, you know, paperwork relief for us too, or for me, I should say. So bonus. I do have a budget revision that I'd like to present this month for approval, and I'll go through the details of that when that comes up. And then the levy certification, we've talked a lot about that already, so that'll be coming up later on in the agenda. And then I just wanted to thank my coworkers in the office, Kelly, Tammy, and Deb, for helping me out while I've been on medical leave. It's good to be back, but I do appreciate all of you, and Eric and Lori and Lisa, thank you again. I know it's hectic when I'm not here and stuff, but we managed to make it work, and working from home, you know, wasn't all that bad all the time. So, but good to be back, and I'm feeling good. So I am bring on the workload, right?
Well, we'll get you lots more if you want it. All right, Mrs. Weber for superintendent report.
Glad you're back. I have a lot of the legislative comparisons with the different professional groups just to go over, and I highlighted some just because I know it's a lot of information. So I will not talk about all of it, just want to touch on some of it. Starting out with the new state budget forecast. In May, we were looking at a significant forecast of looking at a surplus of $640 million. And then it was looking at a $5 billion shortfall. So a significant bad picture, really bad picture. One of our presenters today said at one point they saw 6.5 billion, so it's been worse, but it wasn't looking good. Then it looked at a bit of an improvement, but the latest forecast they came out with was much, much better. Looking at part of that improvement is CARES Act funding came around, and that was a big turnaround for them. They've got, like I said, that $2 billion reserve, but part of that was on the back of a $118 million of school funds coming back because of 12,600 and actually 66 students enrollment that's down for Minnesota schools. And so one of the things you're going to see as we go into these different legislative proposals is the hold harmless. And that's what that impact aid did with Tina Smith's proposal or bill that passed, is that hold harmless for impact aid. And you're going to see that that's one of the things that all the legislative proposals are looking at, is either fill the hole or hold harmless on last year's numbers in enrollment, because Minnesota schools are getting hit hard this year for two couple of areas. One is a lot of people chose to keep their kindergartners home this year and are delaying the start of kindergarten. And so overall, Minnesota kindergarten numbers are lower than usual. And then the other thing is just the reduced enrollment. A lot of students across the state did online learning, and so very low numbers across the state. The other thing that's having a big impact is, that we use free and reduced lunch forms for compensatory aid. And since we have free meals this year, a lot of people aren't finding the need to fill out the free and reduced lunch forms. And so there's a lot of discussion around how else can we look at tabulating that free compensatory aid. And so there's a lot of discussion around that. But right now they gave us until January 4th to try to get those forms in. So we're really encouraging parents to get those forms in. Not only is it used for free and reduced lunch, it's used for aid for school. Lots of times it's used for grants. Sometimes it's used for other programs for students, and how to get additional scholarships or getting other aid for students. So really need to get free and reduced lunch forms in to make sure that we're helping with the budget and helping with programming. So some of the things with MSBA legislative agenda, I do have an attachment that kind of lays out the pinwheels for some of those things, but they are really looking at equalizing school levies across the state. There's very different from school to school on the funding and who's able to get funding and who's not able to get funding. MSBA is always strong on local decision-making authority, and then staff recruitment. It's very difficult to find teaching staff, administrating staff, and superintendency. There's a big concern about that going into the next 2 years. So you'll see a big push about that. And then supports for social emotional learning and closing the digital divide. When we look at MREA platform, I highlighted just a couple of those things. Protect Egg to School. Egg to School has been a great program. We were able to utilize that and take advantage of that as we looked at our building project. But as that program continues to grow, that's becoming a very expensive program for the state. As we look at school readiness, looking at streamlining pathways to funding, voluntary pre-K, and school readiness plus. That would be beneficial for us to be able to streamline the pathways to involuntary pre-K. Special education, that comes through every single year. That's an underfunded program. It's mandated and underfunded significantly. As we look at basic education revenue, we are underfunded about, Michelle pointed that out in her presentation today, but underfunded about $658 figure across the state. As we look at the teacher shortages, they're looking at trying to do some things with new grants, student teaching stipends and loan forgiveness, expanding the Grow Your Own program, and looking at teachers of color and American Indian teacher legislative initiatives. For career and college readiness, one of the things to be aware of is the Department of Education is coming back requiring another science credit that can only be gained through earth science. Rural schools are looking at keeping that open. I'm not opposed to an earth credit, but not through a specific science credit. We want to have the flexibility to get that through an egg credit or a skilled class so that they can do it more as a career options course and leave that flexible to rural schools to be able to do it through a variety of different ways. As we continue to go through and look at the levy program, looking at increasing that, school linked mental health programs, school county collaboratives, looking at restoring funding in those. That's been reduced over the years. MASA legislative platform is looking at making sure that there's an increase in the basic formula, as well as increase in special education formula, long-term facilities formula. So trying to hit it across the board to increase funding a little bit everywhere. And then in education policy, once again, looking at local authority, unfunded mandates, and you're going to see that in all areas, whether it's MREA, MSBA, or MASA. I'm really hitting hard the unfunded mandates. And then teacher licensure, making sure that there's flexibility in teacher licensure. That really has come home to us this year and hit us hard. They're talking very much about being careful how we approach. There are a lot of needs in COVID time. And so making sure that we have what we need to support our students is very, very important. But we also know that we need to make sure that we're supporting businesses and we're supporting other areas, that need funding also, and that we are working with people and with others to make sure that we're not saying we need it more than anybody, because we don't. Our businesses need money, and there's a whole lot of people in the state of Minnesota that need to be funded also. So we work with people to make sure that everybody's getting what they need as we work through COVID time. And then I just have a little bit on the incentive program that you can take a look at. I want to thank Lainey Thomas, Mike Arthur, Jen Ladd, and Andrea Haberkamp and Katie Skurzik for working on this initiative. But really looking at how they can use Google Classroom and videos of staff members demonstrating wellness tasks, and really encouraging and increasing that engagement and getting kids involved in things that are about health and wellness, and having teachers get involved, and just increasing that engagement and participation and things that get them engaged. And what we know about kids and engagement, whether they're on distance learning, hybrid learning, or in person, that makes them feel better, makes them get more involved and increase their relationships with staff and with other students, and it increases their performance in school. When you feel better, you do better. Any questions for me? We will be doing all of our lobbying and involvement with our legislators through or through remote. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in that, let me know.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or any questions for Lisa? Okay. Moving on to looks like activities, but with the recent shutdown, there isn't a whole lot. Does anybody have any other questions? And I think that Nick had brought us up to speed on what was happening at their joint activities committee meeting. Is there any further questions for that? Maintenance, Dan, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Do you have anything to add to your report?
We had our sweeper go down for our John Deere tractor. I've been working on that today.
A new one?
What's that?
Is that our new one?
Yeah, not the one in Ogama, it's the one in Waubun. It's 6 years old. It's 2014 model. So, and then some boiler issues that we're getting figured out with ICS for the new addition, making sure we got a big enough boiler to handle that. So that's about it.
Okay. Other than that, construction's going good.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Travis, technology. Do you have anything to add to your report?
Not really. We had a meeting today with ICS on the new construction, and we just made sure we're all on the same page with the classrooms and the new technology going in there, and everything's where it should be as far as I can see.
Okay. Anybody have any further questions for Travis? Travis, thank you. Appreciate everything that you do to Okay, so then we have representatives, non-certified. Is anybody from non-certified on? Anybody for certified? Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a presentation, so you guys want to go ahead?
Yep, let
Yeah.
me get our slideshow here. Okay. Oops. Why? Oh, wait, that's not what I wanted. I want present. Sorry, guys. Okay. Can everyone see what's on my screen here?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. As a lot of you may know, we did a family engagement survey a little while back, and we just wanted to share the results from that survey. And this, Jen, you want to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay. So the total responses was 129, and as you can see from the graph, what it was broke down to by each section. Okay, and then next slide. Then I'll just go through each of the questions. I'll keep it pretty simple. This just broke down by each grade for the section birth through grade 5, and just showed how many people we got to respond in each of those categories. And next slide. And then the school curriculum, library events and activities reflect and honor cultures of our family. And as you can see, we had a big chunk respond with always and sometimes. The smaller ones were rarely, never, and not applicable. And then we had 1% say if you were of the native culture. So I felt like we had a really great responses in all these questions and got a lot of great data. Next slide. And then school daycare communication tends to focus on. So in this, we had, general news about the class obviously was the most. And then we had progress in specific problem areas. Then we had performance and, problems and misbehaviors, overall child progress, social and emotional development, successes and strengths. This year, it was lacking greatly, the one person said. We had, just random and then general information. I'm speaking to the newsletter, not sure what else is put out there to keep parents informed. And I get no communication from the teachers and only generic robocalls from school about absences. I have heard nothing else directly. And then general school announcements. Next, if they had a question or concern, I am able to meet with the principal, teacher, or any other staff. And as you can see, this is something that a lot of parents don't have an issue with. Some say, rarely, maybe a call. Distance teacher are very responsive. I had some that said, I try to text, but sometimes they are very slow to get back. Haven't needed to communicate this year. And teachers are always great about discussing any issues that come up or check-ins on my child. All teachers have a strong homeschool connection. So a majority of the families that did the survey for the most part, agreed with that statement. We had some, rarely, never, and then a chunk that it was not applicable to them. Next, this one's a little bit hard to read just because we had the different responses, but in what ways can the school help increase attendance to community/school events? And it was provide a meal, provide transportation. The big one was just provide more time options, provide childcare. The other one was open up. The one we were able to attend events we wish to participate in. Don't know, doesn't apply. Pretty good now. The school does this well. Not sure, not applicable. What events specifically? Different for all families. During work, more options, virtual, advertise more. This isn't an issue right now. Keeping kids safe is the most important thing. And then attendance is not an issue at my house, but maybe need to be more creative in collaborating between each grade level for teachers to work together and provide a better way to reach kids consistently. It has become more difficult for families when events occur in Mahnomen instead of Waubun or Ogama. And then better advertising, more events for younger kids. And then when interacting with the school, I feel welcomed and my ideas or questions are well accepted. So once again, we had, the majority of the families felt this was always being done, or at least sometimes, rarely or never. And then for some reason that two blue sections are the same. They're the same answer. And then how do you view literacy in your family? People reading newspaper, magazines, and online articles, telling stories, reading stories, listening to stories, reading and following directions while building, baking, or creating something, watching a TV program as a family and talking about it. Some people said they need to work on that. More hands-on learning. They were doing Epic, watching a TV program as a family, listening to music and singing along, traditional powwow or hand drumming songs. So we had it's fun to see just the wide variety of ways families, view literacy in their home. And then Child Achievement Program is shared with families in ways that incorporate their ideas about how to improve achievement. Once again, the majority thought that this was always being done, or at least sometimes being done. About 6.8% said rarely, and 1% said never. The information your child receives from the school is helpful. So we had, once again, the majority of people saying sometimes and always. Rarely was 3.9% and never was 1%. Families are provided with tools and trainings to engage literacy activities at home. Majority were saying sometimes, and then always, rarely is 1%, or never is 1%, and rarely was 12.7%. Community school activities and events are planned with parents and responds to their interests. We had a majority of the families felt that this sometimes happened, and then rarely was a smaller amount, and then 1% never. Next, what type of literacy activities would you participate in? And this was really helpful just for the next steps we have in planning. So make and take literacy night, movie family literacy night, fun activity ideas sent home, reading challenge, be a guest reader, book club, don't know, and then none. And then this question was a bit overwhelming on the graph, as a lot of people responded very differently to it. So I kind of went through and highlighted, because some of them kind of did like match up and correlate with each other. So people would like to see books visually in the curriculum. People thought, we're doing a good job now. Acknowledge and respect. Teach children about diversity and acceptance. All heritages and traditions being represented equally. The same amount of energy teaching throughout the school year, not just during Native American Heritage Month. Food, holidays, and where the country is in the world. Hands-on, building, harvesting, teaching, and history. And I would like to see my children learn about all cultures and what makes each one special and unique, so they begin to appreciate and accept difference at a young age. And then this was a great question too, just when was the best time for school community related activities? As you can see, a lot of people thought evenings after 5 or later. Then we had a few that thought, afternoon, right after school. And then I think it was 7% thought weekends. If the school offered classes, what would you be interested in? Computers and technology, social and emotional development. I'm not surprised about this one, especially with, distance learning, how to help my child succeed, tips and tricks, early learning opportunities, understanding the academic standards and testing, cultural activities, snowboarding, guitar, meteorology, astronomy. None. Fun crafts or art projects that don't focus on academics, since children have that focus all day long. And then faith-based. Okay, and then the next, if the school offered classes, what would you be interested in? Oh, sorry, we just did that one. As a parent guardian, would you like support in the following? And this is spending quality time with your child, assisting your child with homework, obviously really big with distance learning, working with your child's special needs, behavioral, social, and emotional, collaborating with schools and daycares, motivating your child to do well, understanding the school district policies. I don't know, encouraging, challenging, and then none. And then at the end, we asked for additional comments. I kind of did an overview of that, and some felt overall the school's great. I feel lucky my child goes here. Children really care, or teachers really care about each child, and you can feel that. And then as a whole, the school district is doing fine. Some felt like this was a poorly timed survey. They thought it was going to be more directed about the decision to go distance learning, as this pretty much came out right at that time. And that was pretty much kind of out of our hands. We are following a grant, and this was a step in our grant. People were disappointed that it wasn't about distance learning. A lot of people felt like it was a big improvement from last year's distance learning, would answer differently for each child, lack of communication from teachers, and more support for kids in grades 4 and 5. They just felt like there was kind of a drop-off with them being in Waubun. And then moving forward, we will survey the staff and then create a best practice menu based off the results of the family engagement survey, and then start implementing activities. Looking at doing the survey every couple of years to keep updated information and current wants and needs of families. And then with the best practice menu, that is just going to be kind of like a document, and it's broke down with different categories. On top, it would have volunteering, literacy, cultural, and then community events, and family and school partnership. And then that'd be on the top, and then on the left side, it'd be broke down into each age group. And then throughout there would be activities and things that we learned from this family survey and that we could incorporate. And then parents would have the option to choose which activities they felt worked best for their family. And then if they wanted to volunteer, there would be ideas and activities. And then the plan would be to have this goal with each season. So then we can include things happening in the community so that parents are aware of what's going on. And this would be shared with them. And just a way to keep it all in one place. They would know, like, if they have a baby, this is what, activities are going on for them. And if they had a 4-year-old, and just trying to make it, easy for families to understand what's going on and what is being, supplied for them. And I know I talked to a few people and they didn't even know about ECFE night. And so just getting those programs out there, because they're really great programs. And I feel like a lot of these families would enjoy them.
Are you good, Donna?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then I am going to present on the 6 to 12 section. It was a different section of the survey. We wanted to kind of differentiate because you'd answer differently for the elementary versus the older kids. And so the first question was really general. Our family feels welcome in the school for activities and events. Overall, this was a really positive one, with 66% agreeing or strongly agreeing. A quarter of them were neutral, and very few disagreed with that statement. Then the next one was, how supported do you feel by Waubun High School when it comes to helping your children with education? 63% felt supported or very supported. 34% felt somewhat supported, and very few feel completely, wait, I feel like I'm on the wrong one. No, I am. Okay. Very few feel completely unsupported, not supported at all. And this did go out, like Donna said, right when we kind of switched over to distance learning. And I feel like the not supported or somewhat supported people might have changed their answer by this time, because we do have that distance learning hotline. We made up that quick guide for people to see if they're having troubles, with technology or mental health or whatever, they can, they know who to contact. I think now that number could be improved. The next one is, when I have a question, concern, or comment about my child, the teacher or principal get back to me right away. This one was also very positive, with most of the people saying always or almost always. 24% were saying sometimes, and only 7% said almost never or never. Next question is, oops, I skipped. How good are staff members at Waubun High School at reaching out to you? Majority are only hearing from their teacher when they have a question or concern. That was 50%. 14% said not good at all. The only time the teacher reaches out when it is something negative. So there's some room for improvement there, of course. The next question, how often are you updated on your child's progress in school? This was really similar to the last question. 52% said somewhat often. I receive information throughout the quarter. That was via like letters sent home, or the, what do we call those? The midterm progress reports, or checking like Skyward or Synergy now. 13% said they only hear at the end of the quarter, and only 10% said they hear up from them often. And this also could be different now that we're in full distance. I know myself, for my children, I hear a lot more now that we're in full distance about how they're doing. So this number could be different by this time. The next question, I am asked what my goals are for my child's learning. This one was kind of all over the place, but 46% said never or almost never, and 36% said sometimes. The next question was, how good is Waubun High School at providing information and guidance to you to support your child's learning at home? 8% said, very good. I know what's being taught and how it is being taught. 28% said, good. School staff and teachers provide regular updates on what my child is learning. And 63% said either somewhat good or not good. Yep, the yellow and the green section. So overall kind of negative here, somewhat good. They don't know what they're learning about, or they don't know how to support their kids at home. They're not getting a lot of information. Again, this one could be different now that we're in full distance and the teachers are communicating a lot more with parents and students. So, all right. And then this one, the red and purple sections are also the same answer. And that was 52% was the same response to finish this sentence. At Waubun High School, communication and engagement opportunities are irregular or too frequent. I don't know what to be paying attention to. So over half of our families don't know what they should be paying attention to when we send out information to them. And then 15% said it's rare and sporadic. They don't know what's going on at school. And a very small portion said it was organized and streamlined and know what to look for. And then I did ask if you could change one thing about Waubun High School, what would it be? And I did get a lot of answers, but these are kind of a majority. You know, people are saying more communication from teachers. I missed all my kids' choir concerts last year because I didn't even know about them. This year, my child is in 7th grade and is being treated like an adult. It's like the kids go from having parent-teacher conferences and open communication, and now my kid is on his own. 6th and 7th graders are still children. It would be nice if teachers sent home a syllabus to parents so we have an idea of what our kids are learning or reading. Keep the website current and updated. More specifics regarding events and sports. It seems like we've had a lot of teacher turnover in the last few years. Why are these teachers leaving, and what can we do better to keep these teachers in our district? We've lost some really great teachers. Wish there were more arts, drama, STEAM, robotic, extracurricular activities. One parent said they don't feel as comfortable in Waubun. I don't know a lot of the teachers. I wish it was upbeat and welcoming. I understand the school is getting harder, but it should be fun too. When my child is not doing well in a class or assignments are not turned in, I would like to be notified earlier in the quarter instead of at the end when it's rush time. A lot of these responses had to do with communication and how difficult it is, and suggestions to improve it. So part of like my next steps are to look at the ways we communicate, district news for specific classes, specific students, buildings between like what's going on in Ogama, what's going on with Waubun, and how we can streamline that and make it a little bit easier for parents to know what to pay attention to and what, doesn't, what they don't need to be paying attention to. Like people with elementary students don't have to always know what's going on in the high school. So we're just, I'm working with a couple other people in our grant that are throughout the state, and they're having the same struggles in their district. Communication's hard for them too. And so we're brainstorming and trying to think of different ways to make it better. We're also going to do a staff survey on ways to communicate, or on ways to improve this communication barrier that we're having, and then also a student survey. One of the big things that we talked about was improving relationships with students in the high school, because a lot of parents felt that relationships weren't as strong when their students came to the high school versus the elementary. So we're looking at ways to improve that as well. And that is all I have for you guys, unless there are questions.
Anybody got any questions? Great job, ladies.
Thank you.
Yep. Good information. Definitely eye-opening.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah. Well, it's a good grant, and I'm glad that we're doing it. And so we find some ways to improve communication. I think that's what has always been, and this, it's not new. It's not something that's just, from distance learning or anything like that either. It's just seems to be enhanced, since distance learning, but communication has always been difficult for as long as I can remember, but we do our best.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Alrighty.
you.
Alrighty, we'll move on to students. Is there a student on? I don't see one. Okay. 6.0, approval of the consent agenda.
Motion, Nick.
Motion by Nick, second. Second by Derek. Roll call vote, Vicky? What? Yes, Vicky's a yes. Derek?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yes. Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And Christie's a yes. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to recognitions, and I think both Lori and Eric had put all of the recognitions in there, except for 7.1, 2, and 3 is you guys, right? Right? 4, 2, 7.4. Congratulations to our Thunderbird football program on an undefeated 5-0 season. The Northwest Football District shared the 2020 postseason awards. Congratulations to John Clark on receiving Coach of the Year and the many T-Bird players receiving awards and recognition. 7.5 is congratulations to Jay-Z Van Pelt for being selected as a good student winner by R&J Broadcasting for the week of November. And National Special Education Day, the Mahnomen-Waubun School would like to say thank you to all of our special education staff for all of their hard work. Okay. Any other recognitions? Anybody would like to add? Public comment. Persons who wish to address the board need to email at publiccomment@waubun.k12.mn.us. The person shall state the reason for addressing the board and shall be limited in length and time at the discretion of the board chair. Patrons should not expect a response from the board. If appropriate, the board chair will direct follow-up activities. All comments must be in accordance with board policies. Do we have any public comment? I'm not getting any. Anybody else? Okay. So now we will move on to, there's old business for none, 9.0, 10.0, new business, discussion on action, certification of the 2020-2021 payable levy. So Michelle, I think this is back to you.
Yep. All right. So this is everything that we would have went over in the truth and taxation presentation. And so I've laid out 2 options for motions for you guys. So I'll just go through the 2 motions. The first one, motion A, is going to be to approve the final levy certification for the full amount, which would be including the Safe Schools levy of $28,173.60. We have previously under levied in that category before because that's 100% local levy. So just restating what we went through in the presentation, it's an overall decrease of 3.72% respectively overall. And then motion B would be to under levy. So this motion does not include the Safe Schools levy of $28,173.60. So this would result in an overall decrease of $82,114.41 or 5.66% respectively. This would result in a Fund 1 increase of 41, an 8% increase, a slight increase of 567.50 or 1.69 in Fund 4, and then the same in Fund 7, the 13.74%. So they've got 2 options for you for motions. Did anybody have any questions on the levy reports at all?
So Michelle, this is Alan. And I'd asked you before, do you know if the community ed levy is at 100% local?
That is 100% local. So looking at the calculation that it runs through, it's it's based off our population amount, which is census data from 2010. And so, you know, when it runs through, it takes our ANTC from 2019 and gives us a levy limit calculation of 17,354.84 with no aid that goes with that levy amount. So that would be 100% local.
Okay.
And that is separate from ECFE, school readiness, any of those. This is just the general community ed fund.
Okay.
So that helps cover some of the staffing costs and things like that.
Right.
So the only difference between the two, A and B, is just that it's that safe school levy?
Yes. Yep, that is correct, Derek. So the motion one would be basically levying the maximum. So taking that safe schools levy and levying that dollar amount. Previously, like I said, we had under levied the last few years in that category to help offset and give a break to local taxpayers. You know, it's not a ton, but it is something. And so that's kind of, so I guess I'm presenting that again as an option, just knowing previously what the board had decided to do.
And
then motion B would be without that 28,000. I guess my recommendation at this point, you know, we're sitting well fund balance wise and things like that. We could go either route, but I also think that, you know, overall we are seeing a decrease for next year in the funding when you look at between all the funds together. And so I don't know, you know, with this small of an increase, it would still result in a decrease, if that makes sense, for our taxpayers. You know, so it would be regaining some dollars in safe schools for us as a school district, but it wouldn't necessarily be, you know, a huge increase for the taxpayers. It would still result in a overall decrease. But with the caveat on that being, it depends on what property you own. It depends on what kind of, you know, how these different levies are ran through. And so, you know, it may affect people different ways.
Yep, and I'd argue to even go a little bit further and to under levy on the community ed portion. So we'd go down to $45,528.44. And the reason is saying that is just with the year we've having and with all the layoffs and stuff with the different in the RTC, you know, I know personally on our kind of the house in 1 acre under the other local levy section, ours went up and our valuation went up too, granted, but just that other local levy part went up 39%. And whereas the voter approved levy just went up, you know, it was only 9%, but that was because the valuation went up also. Where all the other, the ag land and stuff, that all went down. But basically, the more the local levies is more on the house in 1 acre, more just the residential areas. And I just think with the way the restaurants, businesses, everybody's been taking it in shorts this year, that whatever we could do to help lower a little bit of the tax bill, I think we should do that. So.
Can we amend that right now?
Oh, yeah.
You can? Okay.
Yep.
So we have a C coming.
Yes.
I didn't prepare for that, Christine.
We got faith in you.
And just kind of going through Fund 1, you know, when I look back at the presentation that we had done, so, you know, we're seeing a slight increase in LOR revenue, which comes with state aid. So that's, you know, we went through that breakout earlier. Equity, transition, operating capital, there's some small increases, but by far the biggest increase in Fund 1 is coming from long-term facility maintenance. And that's because, you know, they've increased that formula at the state level. So they're giving you more per square footage, you know, or more based on the, you know, they go through this calculation where it's the age of your building by the square footage, by the, however they figure that out. I have to look it up statutorily, but that funding stream did essentially go up. There was a projected increase in that area. So that was already scheduled to go up per legislation. And so that's where the majority of that is coming from. And then the LOR increase is going to be because our student count was up. So we had more students, so we're getting more revenue.
And I would assume too, with the new ruling with the impact aid, we should come out okay on that. And this past year also, we had a deficit in community ed and we just paid that off with general fund money. So
yes, we did.
We could do that again this year too, if we wanted to.
And that would be the effect of it, I guess, for the board members wondering, what does that do to our community ed fund? Is that essentially it takes, another $17,000 out of that fund for revenue. And then, it really is in that general community ed funding stream. So again, it's not affecting ECFE. It's not affecting any of our other programs that run through Fund 4. It is just that general community ed. And so, part of that though is where our summer rec program runs through. Part of it is where, Deja was doing some of the reporting and things like that. Her salary is paid through there. So essentially what would happen is, we can reduce that revenue, and I'm looking at my budget projection and I am projecting about a balanced budget in Fund 4 for this year. So when we look at next year, I would assume it would stay about the same, but if we're looking at reduced revenue, we've got two options then. So you plan your activities around the revenue that you have. We restructure some staffing. Deja's still going to have time working with the community ed reporting and things like that, because she's that person. I mean, she does that. And so, essentially what we would look at is, what is that deficit at the end of the year? And then that would come from the general fund. That would be my recommendation, since we already wiped out the debt in the community service fund. I would not recommend incurring that debt again. So it would be a transfer. And then, I would argue that we really need to be very, very cautious on what we're doing with community ed. If we were to move down this road, we've got to be even more diligent that the programs that we're running are actually self-sufficient or somewhat operating not too far in the black or in the red, I mean. And so, and I think, this is no secret to anybody, but summer rec is by far our biggest expense for community ed. No, last year was kind of a, who knew that was going to happen? Now this year, we kind of know where we're at. We're anticipating that we're going to have some things going on, but who knows? We may not be able to either. And so, but again, when we look at the levy, this is next year's revenue. So we can plan, we can anticipate. I don't know what the rest of the board's feeling is on that. That would be my immediate kind of reaction as to, a loss in revenue in that area. Those would be the things that I would look at, if that makes sense. Yeah. The other thing that we run out of there, which is a pretty big program, would be the driver's ed. We don't do the classroom portion, but we pay ed for behind the wheel. And then the revenue that we get from that is their blue card fees. So
the only problem with doing what Al proposes, though, is typically we run in the red each year on those programs already. So if we underfund it right now, all we're going to be doing is, if we were to keep things the same, all we're doing is having a bigger debt at the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Or trying to balance it with increasing fees.
Right. And I think Al's point was, and I don't want to speak for you, Al, but I think what you kind of iterated to me was that, we have a very healthy fund balance in Fund 1. And so, we have the ability to be able to do that.
No, yeah, I get it. I like the train of thought. I like the thinking that way for our constituents and people that are struggling.
Yeah. And I'm just going to
knowing
say
that it may change again.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, some things may have to be run different, but I just hope we can do that without passing that burden on and say, hey, well, community ed, now we need a bigger fee. Well, what did they really gain?
Yeah. And I think, that's something that the board needs to keep in mind as we move into next year. And as we move into this summer's programming and next summer's programming, is that, we know that if we do this, then the majority of that is going to be funded out of the general fund, outside of say local donations or fees that we collect. We've not been apt to raise those fees for community ed, for the summer rec program, because that also creates a hardship for our families. And so we want to continue to keep the fees low, but offer great programming. And so that comes at a cost. And so, I mean, Al's exactly right. We have the fund balance to be able to do that. We're, overall financially, we're a very healthy district. We've done very well planning, saving, projecting. We've got more than enough in reserves. But there again, you just don't know what's coming down the pike either. So, yeah, it is really up to you guys. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's a bad idea. I will say that, between both, you're looking at a small reduction, which will result in some savings. It's definitely not the same as, and I'm not going to give you any ideas, Al, but it's not the same as like $100,000.
No, it's not the same as getting rid of some LOTR money or something, but then you lose so much state aid. That's the big thing. So,
yep. And that was, if you remember back when we looked at implementing LOR originally, the trade-off is that we opted out of some of those 100% local levies.
Yeah.
And so by reducing in those 100% locals, we saved the taxpayers money, but we gained more dollars between, aid and levy. And it was, the one is like a 70-30 split. So we get 70% aid and 30%, is from our local taxpayers. And so the state is paying 70 cents on the dollar for our taxpayers, so that's a great deal. So that's why we try to look at those 100% local levies. Can anybody think of any other questions that you would maybe be thinking or questioning as we're talking about potentially doing this?
I just think one other thing to keep in mind is, as I said, schools are not at the top of the list when it's talking about funding and keeping it whole. And I do think we're going to take a hit financially, and especially as we look and going into the next year. And so I think we need to keep that in mind. And we've talked about expanding programming. And so if we're talking about all this coming out of the general fund, just keep that in mind. So if we're talking about some tough decisions coming down the road, as we talk about underlevying and then underlevying in the second category, in addition to that, there might be some tough decisions and, having to go back and say, well, we can't do this because we don't have the budget, or we're going to have to make reductions. And then we're making these decisions. So just kind of keep that in mind as you weigh these out, that there may be tough decisions coming down the road financially for us to make, because we may not be in this position. So.
yeah. And I've been on the board too when the state got in a tough position and we had a very, very good fund balance, and we got cut back on state aid just because we had a good fund balance. So, so it's kind of now 6 of one, half dozen the other. So,
And that
we didn't
topic
really
has
get
come up.
back on that money either.
Any other thoughts? So what does that motion look like? If that's how you guys are thinking.
just a sec.
If that's the kind of the consensus of the board, I think I would go with motion B, and then just I can quickly figure out the right Fund 4 number.
I think Al's got his calculator out. He's got his
Okay.
trusted calculator,
Okay.
doing his figuring.
I better double check his numbers.
Yeah, you should.
Yes.
But I would come up with a total levy of $1,351,126.86. Is that correct, Michelle?
Let me look here. Got $354. 135112686. Is that what you said, Al?
Yes.
Yep. And then that Fund 4 amount would change from
Does anybody have any other thoughts on that?
That would actually go to a decrease then in Fund 4 instead of an increase. But yeah, I mean, it would be, you know.
The only thing I had thoughts on, I remember when we did this last year, we had talked about keeping things consistent and not having the big ups and the downs as far as reductions or increases. And we've been successful in doing that in the past. To me, this seems like something we're going to be putting back at some point. They're seeing a decrease now. We're going to further increase that decrease. But will we be likely putting that back next year?
Very possibly, yes, for Fund 4. You know, depending again, you know, the kind of the consensus of the board and where we sit fund balance wise and things like that. But you know, initially that was my recommendation coming into this levy cycle, was that we were already seeing a decrease, and so, you know, and kind of keeping things steady to go ahead and pick up that safe schools levy and have that. But I do see the flip side of, you know, those savings when we can give them to the taxpayers, but yet at the same time, you know, I don't know, you know, that it's going to be a huge impact. And I think you're right, Nick. I mean, I think eventually somewhere down the line, these come back on. Whether it's now, whether it's later, whether it's offset by a different decrease in some other area or something, you know, that's hard to project. But at some point, yeah, I mean, I think that you would want to pick those up.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with everything that Alan's saying in terms of why we would do it.
Right.
And I just threw it out there as far as just the consistency in what we're doing with the levies.
Yep. And like I said, you know, that would be why I would go with that, you know, that first recommendation, is just because that still does leave for that overall decrease. And it leaves things, although not categorically maybe the same, when you look at it overall, though, it does sort of hold things relatively the same without a huge increase, you know.
Michelle's talking.
So definitely something to consider, and there's all those different factors that you start to weigh. Ultimately, it's your guys' choice. I mean, if you're asking me financially, what can we handle? What can we afford? I mean, 1 year is one thing. When you start moving down the line, though, I don't know, how much are you willing to take from general fund dollars to continue to support a community ed program too?
That is very much needed.
Well, I think our community ed program isn't going to look like prior years. And, you know, with COVID here, I don't know that our community ed program is going to look like that in the near future either, you know, so things are going to be looking different. Whether we have more options for kids or less, but it's not going to look like what we had in the past.
And we've got, you know, grants available to us and things like that. I feel like we're masters at this point, right, Eric, of and Lisa, of braided funding and things like that. And so, you know, we put the pencil to the paper and try to figure out how to fund these things with the existing funds that we have and work within the parameters. But there are some things that those grants can't even cover, you know. And so
that's what I was gonna just kind of remind, is that we talked about wanting to do some expanded summer programming, and you know, this would be one pocket of money that we would use to braid, you know. And so while we have these goals in these areas and then we underfund them, so once again, there's pros and cons of doing this, but that would be one of the cons. This would be one of those pockets at summer programming, if we're able to do it, would be something that this would be one of those areas that we would be braiding the funding from. But I also agree with some of the other things you're talking about, you know, but if we talk about pros and cons.
And I will just say last year's, you know, with the budget for Fund 4 turned out as well as it did, with a very small deficit, because we didn't have a ton of the summer programming going. And so, you know, so with the levies in place, you know, it's funding what we're doing, right? And then essentially that the summer rec portion is on top of that. And it's the piece that we can't claim for educational hours. So it's really that rec piece. And I'll just say it's that baseball, softball, which is so important to our community, and our kids love that. All of my kids have participated in that. And so I'm not opposed to that at all, but it does end up being a pretty huge cost between busing and salaries and people and time and everything else. And so, but that being said, you know, it's one of those commitments that the board has always made too. And so, you know, and I guess the point that I'm trying to make is essentially that's general fund dollars then covering that. You know, and, you know, we're good at this point. I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to say what's going to happen down the road and where we're going to be fund balance wise 5 years from now. But, you know, in all reality, it wasn't that long ago when we said, oh my God, we got a $50,000 debt in food service. That's a teacher. And we had to take that out of the general fund. You know, how long is it going to be before we're back to that point? I don't know. I don't anticipate that. But again, we don't know. The state is projecting, you know, some not so great things happening. That tends to roll down and affect us. You know what? I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to tell you what was going to happen. Yeah. I guess my point being is that we don't want to get in the position where we're saying, are we funding the $25,000 or $30,000 deficit in community ed, or are we hiring the parent that we need? And I don't know that we're heading to, you know, I'm not saying that we're heading to that drastic of a time, but anytime you're talking general fund dollars to cover other deficits, whether it be food service, et cetera, I mean, that's the reality of what you're looking at.
Right. And I understand that. And this is just a 1 year deal right now. So, and we do have a very good general fund balance. So that's what I'm looking at. And it's, I'll be the first one to make a motion to spend out of the general fund for community ed. I think I made the motion to cover the debt from last year. So
yep.
It's, I don't have a problem with that.
I think we'll be fine. I would support that, and knowing that likely next year it's coming back on, but difficult times. And if we could do something.
And that option is always there from year to year, regardless.
Yes. Yep. Right.
So.
Michelle, what kind of reduction would that be in say $100,000 home then? You know?
Oh boy, you're really putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry. Well, you know what? I'll ask that after. You don't have to worry about it. Don't worry about it now. But I'm just trying to say, you know, just kind of weigh the effect. If it's $10 or $15, you know, per home like that, then is it really going to be that effective? Is what I'm saying.
Is it material?
Yeah. I mean, if it's $100, yeah, I get it. You know, that's a significant reduction.
I guess my gut says that it's going to be minor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No matter who it affects.
I'd say it'd be minor too, but if they took a look at our fund balance and what they probably got in their own bank account right now, you know, and we're not doing everything we can to reduce what their expenses would be, I don't know. I wouldn't. It'd be difficult too. So
yeah, it is when you look at it where we're sitting right now.
You know, and for some people, it may not be a hill of beans, and for other people, if it's $5, that $5 may mean a whole lot. You know, we don't know, and who are we to say? You know,
I've gotten tackled for the $5 before.
I mean, if it's a senior citizen on a fixed income, you know, in their house and stuff, it makes a difference. So
yeah, it does.
I'd make Alan's motion.
Second.
Okay. So wait now. Hold on, you guys are flying before me. Okay, so we are gonna make motion B.
Yep.
With an additional reduction of 40.
no, with an additional reduction of $17,354.84. So the total reduction would be $45,528.44.
Got it. All right.
And I will work with Tammy to reword that properly so that flows
Perfect.
correctly in the minutes. So
Okay, so we have a motion by Nick and a second by Derek. Okay, for motion B with its changes in the reduction of the community ed portion totaling $45,528.44. Roll call vote. Looks like I have to. I'll do it all here. Vicky? Yes. Derek?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And Christie's a yes. Motion passes for the motion B with its amendments. All righty. Now we will look at 10.2, approve first reading of the revised fiscal year 2021 budget.
okay, with good intent, I was wanting to have a finance committee meeting, but timing wise, it just didn't quite flow well. But I wanted to get some revised numbers out there because things have changed with the CARES money and the CFR money and the gear money that we've received. And then we did take a look at the ADMs again. And so I reran an ADM estimate because lo and behold, the state finally has the revenue projection out there for the current year. I was so excited. It's actually all up to date with the current legislation that's been passed. So, so I reran the revenue projection, but I did pace back just a little bit on the ADM. So originally we had went into the year planning 655. I did some mid-year report pulling and looked at some MARS reports and looked at student counts and things like that. And I went back to a 646. And I feel like we may be just a bit conservative, but I'd rather be conservative than too aggressive and come in short.
Mhm.
And so, so I ramped that back. We'll keep a very, very close eye on the MARS reports as we're coming into the spring, and we'll keep keep an idea on the count on where we're at. ADMs means membership, and so attendance has a factor in this, somewhat. Our bigger thing is the kids that are falling off or dropping off at that 15-day out mark. So we're able to claim them, but when they don't come to school for 15 consecutive days, we got to drop them. And so that's a loss of revenue. That's a loss of that part of that ADM. And so, we had a pretty big conversation about this. And like I said, the attendance pays a part, but it's more of when they drop off after that 15 consecutive days. And I know that we're doing the truancy and we're doing this and we're doing that, but look at the time that we're into. So we're having a hard time tracking students. And I don't want to speak for Eric and Lori, but just some of the issues that I'm aware of. And so, so that's kind of where we're at with ADMs. So I just kind of wanted to give you, so that changed our revenue projection just a bit. Overall though, our revenue is up just over $1 million. And so why, when we look at that, well, we've had the renewal of the literacy grant, that's $445,000. And then we had the ESSER Gears and CFR COVID relief funds from the state. That was over $500,000. We're sitting at $535,927 for that fund. And then that's not even including the grant that I just talked to y'all about, the $110,000 for the SR funding. And so that is not included in this budget revision. So I'll have to add that one too. But so that's kind of the adjustments that I made for the revenue, and you can kind of see how that's changed. When you look at the revenue report, the previously approved budget is going to be the middle column. The very first column on the left-hand side is going to be where we ended at actual numbers last year. And then on the very right-hand side that says WB21, that is my new budget numbers that I'm asking for approval on. And so as far as the expenses go, I've added all of the expenses. We are all up to date with contract settlement, etc. Any of those things that we've had out there have all been kind of resolved, and we know that what those costs are. I don't feel like there's anything that's going to come and catch us by surprise at this point. I did actually add dollars for potential purchase of the property in Ogama actually to the budget this year, because I have a feeling that might be an expense that we're going to be incurring. And so even with adding that, we're still holding the line on a balanced budget within the general fund. Does anybody have any questions?
That's good news.
Mhm.
Good job, you guys. I do think that our ADM reduction, yeah, we're going to see that reduction definitely. Just, kids moving to other districts and going into their other learning plans and, things from online school. We have several that are doing that too. So I think overall, there was a 12% that, didn't you talk about that this earlier, that there was a reduction of more students. So I think that, being conservative is definitely where we need to be.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions for Michelle on this first reading?
And then I guess the plan from here would be, I'll look at, watching those things and adding any other changes that I see, and then hopefully meeting before the January board meeting to kind of just have a quick finance meeting, just go over some of we can do it virtually or however you guys want to do it, just to go over some of the differences that you're going to see and some of the changes that I've made in a little bit more detail.
Okay. All righty. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of the fiscal year 2020 revised budget?
I'll make that motion, Alan.
Motion by Al, second.
Second, Derek.
Second by Derek. Roll call vote. Vicky? Yes. Derek?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Christie's a yes. Motion passes. 10.3, approve resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions.
This is an annual directive from the board to the superintendent that we have passed every December or January, just a way for us to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we are being efficient. So there's a resolution that should be the last thing in your packet.
Yeah. Do I have to read it? Do I have to read it?
You have to read it?
Do I
Yes,
really?
it's your choice.
All right.
Chair and vice chair, you guys can decide.
Go ahead. All right. Director, who introduced it? John. Director Zimmer introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions and reasons therefore. Whereas the financial condition of the school district dictates that the school board may have to reduce expenditures immediately, and whereas this may include discontinuance of positions and discontinuances or curtailment of programs, and whereas a determination may have to be made as to which teacher contracts must be terminated and not renewed, and which teachers may be placed on unrequested leave of absence without pay or fringe benefits and affecting discontinuance of positions. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 435 as follows, that the school board hereby directs the superintendent of schools and administration to consider the discontinuance of programs or positions to effectuate economies in the school district and reduce expenditures, and make recommendations to the school board for the discontinuance of programs, curtailment of programs, discontinuance of positions, or curtailment of positions if reductions in expenditures are necessary. This motion for the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by Director
Alan.
Allen. Yep. Second by Director Allen. And then upon vote being taken thereon, the following voted in favor thereof. And we will do a roll call vote. Vicky? Yes. Derek?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And Christie's a yes. And the following voted against the same, 0, whereupon said resolution was declared duly passed and adopted. All right. All right. 10.4, approved donation from Enbridge Community Grant Program for the amount of $19,400.
Enbridge made a donation for school supplies, support material, PPE, and safety equipment, individual water bottles for the Waubun site. So we thank them and appreciate the donation. It will be put to great use.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Vicky, second.
Second, Derek.
Second by Derek. Roll call vote. Vicky,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
John,
Yes. Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
and Christie's a yes. Thank you. All right, then we get to 10.5, which is discuss a distance learning plan. And this is of course, not without controversy. So, this was a split vote last time. And so we just want to come to another discussion on that. And Lisa has prepared some information and some things that have come to light with Governor Walz's directives and executive order today. I did read over some of that, and it's quite lengthy. So I'll let Lisa take over for that, and then once she completes that, we'll have a discussion and see where we go from there. Okay. A little technical difficulties.
I'm here. I'm back. You guys see me?
I don't know.
Are you able to see the?
I can see you, but I don't see your presentation.
Let's share. Share the entire screen. There we go. There you go. Now I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. Once again, going over the learning model, just a quick review again, just where we're at from last time we met. Good news, obviously, I think we're all aware that numbers are looking trending down, which is a very, very good news. I'll kind of on the next slide go over why we go over these different areas, but reviewing the health areas, very important to monitor the health factors. We look at monitoring prevalence of the COVID-19 in our community, new cases per 10,000 of our residents, positive case rates, test rates, ongoing consultation with public health officials. We look at the academic areas, student and school-related data, including attendance, transportation, close contacts, positive test rates. And then we look at staffing. Do we have staff levels that allow the district to offer the current model we're in? And to maintain that, we look at staff absentee rates based on COVID-related absences. And then safety. Do we have the ability to maintain safe learning environments and the following protocols with PPE availability, cleaning supplies availability, and our HVAC system? And then do student staff feel safe? Looking at the health indicators, new cases per 10,000, Mahnomen County is 99.5, so that's looking good, and that was as of yesterday. And then that was down from 201.6, so 201.6, so a significant drop there. That's great news. Becker County, once again, 113.3, down from 193.65, so a significant drop. And we don't have an update from White Earth yet. They do theirs on Thursdays. So I haven't gotten that officially from Public Health yet from White Earth. But we would anticipate a drop there also. When we look at the state recommendations, we would still be in those numbers. We did talk about MDE is not changing. We would anticipate with the recommendations coming out today that they would be looking at changing that county, the guidance, but they are not at this point changing their guidance. But they are going to be taking a look at it. When we look at our attendance rates for tonight, this is a long meeting. I'm not going to go through those. Eric had talked about attendance earlier and in the report, and so did Lori. Staffing, we still are having staff-related absences, but it is improving. That is also improving. We're looking at 173 COVID-related staff absences in December. And at this point, we do not have safety concerns. Health, like I said, we keep looking at those COVID-19 rates in our community. We work closely with Becker County, Mahnomen County, and White Reservation with public health. And then we look at those the COVID-19 rates in the school district. And then we use the Department of Education health guidelines that they give us to look at those per 10,000 rates. Academics, we look at different various data, including academic concerns, attendance, transportation, as I said earlier, and then look at the positive test rates of both staff and students. We also visit an awful lot about contacts related to in school. So you see the letters that go out, and we talk about close contacts in school. When we look at staffing, a big important part for us, and has been a stumbling block for us, is do we have the staff available to deliver the model? And then are they staged across the district, or is it in one building? And we've had issues significant with it, highly concentrated in one building. Safety, I talked a little bit about that already, but we work closely with Minnesota Department of Health and following safety protocols and the guidance that comes along that, 6 feet apart, 50% capacity, and so on, and safety equipment. We've used the dashboard to try to have a consistent messaging, and then visit. Sometimes we always have the source that we use on where that information comes. In between the meetings with public health, we meet with them weekly, once in a while more often if it's required, but meet with them weekly, and then we get some other resources in between so we can try to do some frequent communication. The Shiny apps, the Wolfson Shiny apps, you can see there, it gives a graph of the November peak. And then it's coming down, and you can see what we talked about when we look at making decisions is we look at trends, and we can see that we're seeing the trend going down. So that's good news. Mahnomen County, once again, we can see that trend at 99.5. It is starting to come down, and just recently you have December 8th, 152. Good sign, coming down, trending down. This one really demonstrates the peak. On December 3rd, the number was 207 for our school district number, 207.8 per 10,000. And you can see that being a drastic drop. And this is what I was talking about with the MDH 14-day COVID per 19 case rate. This is where they've said, they're still recommending distance at 50, but they haven't looked at changing that, but they certainly are not putting a whole lot of weight on that anymore, at least in the recommendation came out today with the governor, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. So current 173 absences, I said earlier, and 30 staff out during December. But that number is improving. So the executive order.
I'm sorry, how many staff are out now?
Right now, 8. Yep, as of today, 8. Rated to COVID. Oops, wrong way. Updated executive order, safe learning plan. Today, the governor made an announcement that they're putting a priority in getting elementary students back in-person learning. And so in a conversation with a couple of the board members today, we talked about reviewing what is required and what's in the learning plan and what's in the executive order. In the executive order, the rules in the safe learning plan, or the guidance safe learning plan, says starting on January 18th, 2020, so I'm starting on the second bullet, every early learning program in elementary school across the state may choose to operate in an in-person or hybrid learning model as long as they are able to implement the additional mitigation strategies listed below, including a rolling start process in which students will gradually be brought back into the building. Early learning programs in elementary schools that are not currently in an in-person or hybrid learning model or have not already announced their plans to implement their in-person or hybrid learning model prior to January 18th cannot move into a in-person or hybrid before January 18th, 2021. So then the question came is, can the safe learning plan dictate to us what our plan is? And so I went back and found the actual wording in the executive order. And the wording is, with students and school staff as a priority, the commissioner and I, and this is from Governor Waltz in the executive order. With students and school staff as the priority, the commissioner and I, in consultation with Commissioner of Health, have concluded that a school district or charter school must adhere to the parameters set forth in a Safe Learning Plan for 2021, Safe Learning Plan, and implementing the 3 instructional models. And so that does put into executive order or law that we have to be compliant with the Safe Learning Plan. Now, we had no idea that this Safe Learning Plan, this was going to happen today, but that puts some parameters on how we roll it out. The good news is, as will continue to explain, it gets us back to in-person learning, and it's going to remove some of the barriers we had to in-person learning. The bad news is we were not in hybrid model at the time this rolled out, or in-person. So we need to use the transition in. So a district that was in distance learning, we need to wait to implement this and roll it in slowly. The good news is we had our plans announced to go into hybrid model on the 18th. So according to that Safe Learning Plan and the parameters of the Safe Learning Plan, we will be able to do that on the 18th because we already had that in our plans and we had that announced to our community. We have that board approved. We had that in our plans. So we'll be able to go to hybrid on the 18th with a transition plan to in-person learning. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. The other part of the announcements was the return to Minnesota State High School League moves from December 18th to January 4th to in-person practice with start date for games to be determined. So here's what the rollout requirements are.
Can I just clarify real quick on a date? You set the 18th and we stayed, the second semester starts on the 19th. That was the date we were coming back. The 19th would be the date, January 19th, not the 18th.
Oh, I'm sorry, January 19th. I'm
Right.
sorry, yes.
The 18th is MLK Day and it's
Oh, I'm sorry,
typically,
but Eric,
yeah.
Eric, this is from the Safe Learning Plan, and in the Safe Learning Plan, it says the 18th.
Right, that's the governor's orders, but for our sake, so that
Yes.
we're not, so nobody in the public or the school board says, how come you guys aren't starting on the 18th? That is a day that we typically don't have good attendance on. That's MLK Day. We typically stay away from that day every year, so.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Eric, so can you tell me, so it was in our plan that we adopted that we were coming back on the 19th? That was in stone?
It wasn't in stone, Nick. It was, if you remember correctly from the distance learning plan, we said we're going to look back on the 8th of January. We're going to have the meeting we had last Friday, and then we're going to have the meeting on the 8th again to see if we can come back hybrid. Before the governor's announcement, we were planning to come back hybrid anyway. And now with the governor's announcement, it frees up, like Lisa said, it frees up some of the barriers that were there for us to bring in our classes or our kids, our youngest kids. The governor had the priority on the youngest learners to bring them back, but we're going to roll them in. So we are rolling them back in starting semester 2. Does that answer the question, Nick?
It certainly does.
Okay.
So additional required mitigation strategies and tools schools must implement for any in-person or hybrid learning model beginning January 18th, 2020. So implement rolling start process for students to be brought back into the building. Executive COVID-19 testing program training saliva kit tests will be provided by the state. Optional for, oh, I got the wrong date in there, yep. And actually that's right from the Safe Learning Model, so it should be January 18th, 2021. Implement a rolling starting process for students to be brought back into the building. Execute COVID-19 testing program. Training and saliva test kits provided by the state, optional for school staff. Every other week for school staff, beginning January 4th, 2021. Face masks and face shields must be worn together by staff in school, by school staff at all times. When educators cannot be 6 feet from students, small group and individual instruction, when possible, add a clear barrier between adult and student. Face coverings must be worn when engaging in indoor physical activity, during recess, indoor physical education classes, and when exercising in a gym. For early learning in elementary schools only, all students' mealtime and specialist lessons must be held in classroom or outside, weather permitting. Physical education classes may continue to be held indoors outside of individual classrooms so long as students and staff are wearing face masks. For in-person only, 3 feet of physical distance or more is strongly recommended. So the 6 feet distancing between students is no longer required. So what we'd be looking as the timeline to return to in-person hybrid learning models is what we would look at for a process is trying to get surveys out to families before winter break to get input as to who will be remaining in distance learning, because they still remain that right. Parents and students would still have that right to remain in distance learning. And then who's coming back to us, who's planning on returning to come back on the 18th, or maybe the 19th, sorry. Window of December, December 18th to January 6th. So we try to get that out right away to get that information and have a deadline of January 6th. So we have time to do the planning. Information for classrooms. We'd be looking at going into semester 2. So especially for secondary, we'd be looking at different classes, who's going to be on distance, who's going to be in hybrid, and then who's going to be transitioning if we're looking at the in-person. Instructional plans, meal services, staffing, transportation, all of that needed for planning. Meet for COVID-19 leadership team on Friday, December 18th, district-wide staff meeting Friday, December 18th. We have a school leader meeting with the commissioner on Monday, December 21st, to get more information. And then we need to submit our plan for our learning model portal. There's a required 2-day planning. So we would look at doing that on Friday, the 15th, and then take the 18th day on Monday. And that's what Eric was referring to. That 18th was that teacher in-service day. And we had talked about potentially moving that and changing the school calendar. With the required 2 days, we'd be losing a learning day. We talked about just leaving that's where it is. RTC has that day off and it's terribly attended because of that. So we thought we have to be required to have 2 days of planning. We might as well use that as a learning day, as a planning day, and do that Monday as a planning day. Bring kids back on that 19th. So then we do the ECK1. You can only do 3 grade levels at a time, roll in. So did you have a question, Derek?
So with the new regulation of 3 feet in Ogama Elementary, that was causing us not to be able to go face-to-face with our elementary. Does the new 3-foot model allow us to go full face-to-face for our elementary and then hybrid high school and 5th and beyond?
Yes, but you have to roll them in and you can't do more than 3 grade levels at a time. And so what we would be doing is on that 19th, we would be bringing everybody back hybrid. And then we would roll in the in-person 3 grade levels at a time.
Like what's the spacing? I guess I didn't see it on the other chart, but I mean, essentially we could bring elementary and hybrid, and then next week we could be full-time with the elementary.
2 weeks at a time.
2 weeks. So if you look at that, at the bottom where it says submit learning plan, on January 19th, we would have everybody come back. So we do ECK 1st grade in person, and then 2nd through 12th grade would all be hybrid. And then they'd go for 2 weeks.
Is that's a part of the governor's,
Mhm.
is that it has to be 2 weeks?
Yep. And then 2 weeks later, and that's part of that slow roll in to make sure we don't have any outbreaks. Then 2 weeks.
I would think that would be more difficult, especially with our elementary being, pre-K to grade.
Yeah. It's not an easy fix, but it's getting us closer to what we wanted, what you guys wanted as a board, what we want as educators. And I agree with you, Christy. It's not. I mean, when you look at our young families, it's not an easy fix, but it does. Derek is right with the 3 feet social distancing. It opens up quite a bit for us.
Is there any way to ask the state for variance on what they just put out? I mean, they're doing it as a whole. They're not looking at it, as a single county, single school. Yeah. Can we ask them, can we submit a request saying, hey, this is going to be really tough for our district. Here's why. Can we move to, boom, just put everybody in the elementary and roll in the high school.
One of the questions I had right away is, wouldn't it be great if we have two separate buildings? Could we do the 3 grades there and three grades here? Why wouldn't we be able to do something like that? So I have questions like that to ask, but then I thought, well, then that leaves the second and third grade there, what I mean? So there's questions we have, they gave it out. We had about a 10-minute, 15-minute conversation today. And then we have more information coming Monday. So there's all kinds of questions we can ask. But I don't think they're going to budge on the rollout, because that's based on the Department of Health, and they've already stretched that so much on the slow rollout. But I do think that if we have questions like, how can we do this specific to this? So like still staying within the guidelines of those Department of Health, like when we have things that are unique to us, like 2 separate buildings, we've got a Waubun Elementary and we've got an Ogama Elementary. So could we do 3 grade levels here and 3 grade levels there when they're in separate buildings? Is that possible? There's some things like that we just don't know. So if there's questions like that you think of, or questions like that we could submit, they're getting bombarded, but they don't have anywhere about updating the transportation plan. They have to update the transportation plan. If they don't update the transportation and they say it's 3 feet in the classroom, how can they not say it's 3 feet for transportation? But I looked everywhere. There's nowhere they've updated transportation. But they did this really quick with no notice of this coming. So there's really good things about this. This is opening things up for us. This is getting us to where we want it, even if it's not as fast as we want it. And there's a lot of unanswered questions for us still. And so we need to be, submitting those, getting those in, getting the answers as soon as we can. But this is overall good news for us. It's getting us closer to what we need and what we want. We need to really look at, in those meetings when we're meeting with teachers, what do teachers need now? If they need more protective gear, if they need some things, we still have the 6-foot distancing for staff. But we wanted kids back in the building. So it's getting us there. It's getting us where we need to be. It's just maybe not as quick as we wanted.
So, and they're requiring a face shield and a mask of the teacher?
Yeah.
Do we have the face shields available, or right now?
We do, but the Department of Education is supplying them to us. And I already got an email from Northwest Service Co-op that they were to have them to us. So they're going to provide them for us, just like they're providing the testing for us.
Derek, we have enough right now on stock where we'd be able to fully handle that for, at least a good month or 2 until, if it had to wait that long till we got some.
Yeah.
With face masks.
I just figured it was going to be something like all of Minnesota was just about to order face masks or face shields. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, we did a good job at stockpiling early with our CFR dollars. So we've got a pretty good stock on hand of options for staff and students. So.
And that's a highlight too, that Michelle stated that she did a really nice job of making sure we had various options, because the ones that come from the state aren't always the ones that people prefer. So we went through quite a variety, and we did as a team. We think she did a really nice job heading that for us. But yeah, we've got quite a bit.
And then they said at this point that they aren't, because of the numbers, that they aren't looking at in person yet for the middle school and high school. But that doesn't mean that, down the road that we aren't going to be able to be there. We just have to be able to continue to ask the questions, see where we're going. They're going to see how it goes with elementary. And that's because, to a point, with the Department of Health, that we know that our older kids react a little bit different with COVID-19. And so, we'll have to see what the guidance is at that point. And I'm sure they're going to see how the rollout goes with elementary first. So I think that we'll have to see how that goes. Watch how that rollout goes and see what our options are as we continue to go down the road with this.
Why can't we, being we do have another principal here, and why don't we as a board just agree to do 3 classes in both schools and see what happens? It's always nice to ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
No, I mean, seriously.
You don't do it on a recorded video line, Johnny.
I mean, that's okay.
That's a very good point, Derek.
Cafeterias, everything is It's basically like two different schools.
Well, and especially if we could get some clarification and see, I mean, I think it's a legitimate request. I mean, they're separate buildings, they're separate. The only disadvantage to that is, we've got pre-K, K, and 1, and then 4, 5, 6, and then we have those second, third graders doing hybrid. I mean, that would be, we'd have hybrid, and it's a 2-week difference. But yeah, that's the possibility. Yeah.
And then bear in mind, part of the reason that they're starting to roll out with the youngest is because the data is showing is that it's 10-year-olds and younger that are being affected less by COVID, and they're proving that. This is coming from the New York school. It's a big study done by the New York school and the New York school system. It is 10-year-old kids and younger that didn't have the amount of cases, and that's why this is coming out the way it is, and that's why Governor Walz and MDH are agreeing to allow in-person learning for our youngest. So if we came out with an idea like this, I appreciate the thinking out of the box, the disruptive thinking, but this might be going right against what the thinking was.
You could also move your second, third, and fourth graders up to Waubun for 2 weeks, and you're busing them anyway.
See,
Say that again, Vicki, I'm sorry.
What?
Can you say that again, Vicki?
That goes against it, Eric? Why?
Oh, that one is actually, that was very disruptive thinking there. Yeah, that would make sense. Not go 4, 5, 6, but second, third, fourth. But
Right.
that'd be,
10th grade start about 5th grade.
yeah, that would be what Lisa would have to ask. She does have a meeting on Monday. I think you guys saw that on the slide. That's what it's about, so that they could ask those questions.
I get that we
And
need
we
to ask
can't roll out.
questions and stuff like that, but you know what? I mean, don't we make the decisions here too, in some point? I mean, we need to be able to make those decisions for our district, and really, we do decide to go, or maybe if we throw that out there, and this wouldn't be,
I think in
K through 3, just pull them all in.
yeah, I think
By
in
the time they catch up to us, then we'll be ready.
Yeah, I think in normal situations that would be the case, Christy. I think with the governor exercising his executive orders and his executive power, I think we're pretty much shackled right now with that. It's a pandemic, and I think
Agree with that, Eric. I think that we can actually do some things here in a local authority that that we could try. I know that's what it says. That's what the executive order and everything. And I don't want to go against the governor, but I don't feel the governor is doing us justice here.
I guess I would ask.
Also, too, given the fact this is our plan, we made the plan. We're not locked into the 19th, but now we're saying we're locked into the 19th. It's our plan. Why can't we change our plan?
Yeah. Well, bear in mind that wasn't my point when I said that. We had that as a original. I mean, we had that as a.
I get that. Yeah, I get it. Yep.
And when we look at the 2 weeks, I mean, part of the reason that we are looking at this, and part of the reason that we're excited about this is, prior to this announcement that came out of basically, and then I don't want to diss on the governor in a public forum. I think he's done. We've said it before here. This is a pandemic. None of us know. 5 years from now, we're all going to look back and go, "Oh my God, we could have done this. We could have done that. We could have done the other." But right now, we're doing the best we can. I mean, we really are. So is he. But what we were excited about is up to yesterday, we were, before this announcement came out, we as an admin team were going to suggest that we come back hybrid, all of us, EC12. So this to us is very good news. This to us is a springboard. It's not exactly what we want, but this is very good. This is going to bring back those youngest learners, those ones. And if you watch the press conference, I mean, he did a very nice job of talking about, and you guys probably all remember your kindergarten teachers. I don't remember mine, but that's because she wasn't very nice to me. But regardless of that, it's one of those things that if we take advantage of this and we utilize everything we can here, but remember the goal has always been to make sure our kids are safe, and they're telling us that our kids will be safe if we bring them back now. And that's a big New York systems of schools did that, and that's fantastic. They got more numbers than we do. And then the second goal is to make sure that the learning is where we want it, and this is gonna do both for us. But that's the way I look at it.
I think.
I'm
sorry.
I was gonna say, I have no issues with how we have to roll out, get the kids back, phase them in. If there's something we can do to get them back in both buildings, great, but that's not my issue. Why can't we be hybrid starting on the 4th? That's 10 days. That's 10 days the kids can be in front of our instructors, their instructors.
Yeah.
That's huge. And we've always said that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm excited that we're moving in the direction to get our kids back here. But there should be no reason why we can't start on the 4th and go hybrid. You start running there and then start phasing things back.
And what I would say to that, Nick, is just give us a transition time. There's a lot of stuff that goes in with the transitioning, the learning goals, teaching hybrid, teaching versus teaching distance is different. You talk about our meal plans, you talk about our transportation. It takes us time, and really this survey that we're going to be doing, that we're going to be going out tomorrow as soon as we're knowing which way we're going to go. That's what it's about, making sure that we get all of our families' inputs. And you guys know how our surveys go. We're gonna give out the survey, and then we're gonna be following up with phone calls and making sure we get everybody what they need, making sure the education is first. But then, what plan are your kids coming back to? Are you going to keep them distance? Or are you going to send them back to us hybrid and then eventually in person? And then what do you need for meals? Are you going to be able to pick up? Those kind of things. Transportation. I think I said transportation already, but that is what we need. We need that 2-week period. We're talking about 4 days right now from here to the 4th, and that's not going to be enough time for us to give a really good quality product. And that's what we're about here. We're not trying to, do I agree with you? Do I, and I've said it many times, distance learning is not ideal. That's why we bring kids in every day. That's why we're trying to do the at-risk stuff every day. So I do agree with you 100%, but the reason we're waiting the 2 weeks is so that we can get all that time to make sure that we are servicing all of our families equitably.
Then instead of, I just have a suggestion that come in, instead of our pre-K 1 and 2, right?
Pre-K, K1.
Why don't we do 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6 up here? Because they're the ones, and then bring it pre-K, K and 1, 2 weeks later, or transition ones in. Because our second, third, fourth graders, sixth graders, those are the ones that are highest need. If people are keeping their kindergartners home anyway, they didn't even know them.
And I was
So,
Ion.
In its
Yeah.
grade level, it's not necessarily number, like 75% capacity or anything like that. Because you might have a smaller number in a grade or in a larger elsewhere. Or like Christy said, maybe 50% of the kindergartners aren't coming back anyway. So then does that open up another grade level, or it's,
Yeah.
how strict is that?
How strict is I'm hearing you two places up.
I guess I'm just asking if it's grade level only, or if it's some sort of a magic number or percentage of, or because what he says makes complete sense. What if you only have 50% of one grade level coming back? Can you opt to have, like, say, the second graders then as well? Or
It's no more than 3 additional grades bands can be together. So it has to be grade levels connected. So, and it gives the examples of, grades 2 to, grades K through 2, 3 through 5. Does they have to be directly banded together?
percent of kindergartners saying that we'll come back, then do we say, so we're actually going to start with first grade then, because we're going to get the most kids back if we keep the band of first, second, third grades together and wait on them. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I am. So survey first.
Well, I think that's what the plan is, right? Or that's what you're proposing, is that we're going to survey first?
Well, we were thinking we would have the plan out there and then survey, but you're saying survey first and then put out the plan?
We kind of want to get the most bang for our buck, right? We want to get the most kids in as quick as we can.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And I don't know what that magic number is. I'm just throwing it out there. But I think if you got 80% of your a little bit older kids who are coming, and those younger ones, parents have decided we're going to hold them home anyway, then let's start with 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I think that our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders are very critical I
Well,
looked
and we
at,
could do that anyway, right? Or we're thinking we could if we bring them up here. I mean, or,
I don't know why not.
right?
Yeah, I don't think it's
Right, but like I think what Lisa said earlier is if we could do a group there and a group here.
I think we should still do that.
Mhm.
Ask us for this later. My thought, but, you know, when you look at that failure rate report that we all gotten, if you guys all saw that, so where our fifth graders had went up, you know, significantly from last year. So I think those are the critical ages that we need to actually start with to up here. So I'm not happy with the date. I'd like to see us start on the board, but I understand where you're coming from with that. You know, but we'll take when we can all in person ready.
So this is all in person when these elementary kids come back. There's no hybrid for pre-K through sixth grade.
We will roll, it's in-person learning, as long as we can put these mitigation strategies in place. If we don't commit to those mitigation strategies, then we can't, but we're saying we will commit to those and try to move into, yeah. So we'll do that.
Yeah, it'd be a rollout, Vicky, but yes.
Yeah, so we have to roll it in 3 grades at a time, but then, and put these mitigation strategies in place. The questions I have out there are, and they've eliminated the barriers that made this difficult for us in the past. So that's why we're excited about this, even though it's not what we want. This is good for us. You know, we had challenges in the past when they said, you know, hybrid for the high school or the secondary, and you can be in-person for elementary, but you have to be, you know, at 6 feet apart, and you have to have all these capacity rules, and you have to have these rules on transportation. And they made all these rules for us that made it so we couldn't do it. You know, so for us, when they came up with all these different rules, then it got rid of some of those rules, then it makes it doable for us. You know, so it's eliminating some of the barriers that we had so that we're able to do this. The other thing that I didn't put in here is the quarantine. They changed some quarantine rules for us too. Even more so than the guidance, they updated the decision tree again. So with the testing, when they provided the testing, if they're doing no symptoms and no exposure, they don't have to wait for their test to come back. So if they test and they have no direct exposure and no symptoms, they don't have to quarantine while they wait for their test. Now that's going to help us a lot with people being gone. Derek? Which one?
Can I maybe go back to one more? I just wanted to read that real quick.
Okay.
So are we being mandated to test? Or I guess my question is, if you don't have symptoms and you haven't been in direct contact, why would you test?
That might be for somebody who is doing just testing every 2 weeks. They would have a right to test every 2 weeks if they wanted to.
Are we doing that or no?
This is going to be the saliva tests. So we are doing the rapid testing right now. People can test any Monday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon, but the state is going to be providing the saliva tests. And for us right now, if somebody takes a saliva test, they need to quarantine because they are doing it if they have symptoms. And that's the Department of Health for schools, childcare, and youth workers. So if they go and they have 2 or more symptoms, then they need to, and they take a saliva test, then they need to quarantine until they get their test results back.
How long does that take?
It's not as long now, it's 3 to 5 days. But when it was in November and there were so many cases, it was 5 to 7 days.
That's a long time. We could end up with a staffing issue like we have right now or did have.
Well, I'm saying that the quarantining is better now. They don't have to wait. So if they say, let's say if somebody has a sore throat and a cough or a headache and they haven't had exposure, then they don't have to wait now. What's that?
But I mean, if you have a cold, I mean, this is one of the problems why we have so many people out. Because if you had a sniffle and a cough, you were automatically sent home. Well, now you don't. You have to have actual symptoms. Well, I shouldn't say that's not actual symptoms, right? Am I understanding that?
If you still think you have COVID-related symptoms, you're still going to have to follow the protocol, right? But it's a little bit different now. You don't have to you don't have to go through the whole protocol. It's one step less anyways. So it's a little bit better than it was. And also the going to the 10 days. You know, if it's in the family, it's still 14 days. That's still the 14 days. But now we have 10 days now for, you know, the close contact. So that's a little bit better. It's getting better.
So kind of going back to what Nick was talking about earlier. So on here, early learning programs in elementary schools that are not currently in a in-person or hybrid learning model or have not already announced their plans to implement their in-person or hybrid learning model prior to January 18th, 2021 cannot move in there. According to what I understand is we've already announced that we were going to go back already. So we've already done what they said. So we can choose when we want to come back, not the 18th or 19th.
No, it's
That's
what
how
you,
I got that too.
no, when she met in our meeting, and what this means, that is that you had to be what you announced prior to the 18th, what you were doing prior to the 18th. So you had to say, what we announced is that we are in distance learning. Like, we are in distance learning. So when we met with them and talked with them, is that we had to have in our learning model, in our portal, that we were going to return on the 4th to a hybrid, that we were going to return to distance learning, or that we knew what our plan was on the 4th. And so we don't. Ours was distance learning. We were going to review that on the 8th on whether we were going to, we were going to return to hybrid on the 18th or 19th. That was our plan. We were going to review the data on the 8th to make sure that that was still going to be a go. We were sure it was going to. We were just going to check in case there was the holiday surge, but we were determined to get back to the hybrid on the 18th. But we were still going to be on the, when we came back from break, going to be in that hybrid plan. And so you had to have had whatever plan we had in place right now is the plan that we have to be in until when we go back on the 18th.
I think we get that. I mean, I get that.
Is that what you were just questioning? That's what he was questioning.
I do understand that, but I don't agree with it. And I think that we should be able to do what we want to do and make our take our local authority back, you know, from, I mean, they're not here. They don't know what we're doing, and they have seen how kids are.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was on. I apologize, you guys. I am. Battery life is like 1%.
Well, we are having a lot meeting.
And I just realized I just realized I contradicted myself on the close contact and the testing. No exposure, no symptoms. Sorry. Yeah. No exposure, no symptoms, then they don't have to wait for testing. So I'm very sorry. I contradicted myself.
Are you done? Travis, can you grab another computer and get it out here, please?
2 of them.
I got 8 minutes left.
Yeah, Chrissy, what I would suggest is the 2
Well, I
week.
know in the transportation policy part, you know, a majority of our is being driven in. I mean, are they being driven in?
A lot are, and I think I think that we just need to get some clarification on the transportation. If we come back to in person, I think that that's going to be a lot of people to try to deal with and work with. We may have to say, are you able to drive? Are you willing to drive? You know, what are we going to do? But I think we're going to have to just work on transportation. We just got a lot of work to do, and we're going to need some time to do that.
Okay, so do we then just give you guys some time to do that and get us some answers back, and then we come back on Monday, the 21st, with, you know, answers on how and what we're gonna do.
You're talking for the survey, Christy?
Oh, sure.
The survey is going to take a lot more than 2 days.
Yes.
I mean, our
You know why? Because I think that a lot of parents and a lot of people are waiting for this. And I think they're going to participate and give you their answers and give you their you know, responses. We can get it out on Facebook or get it out to everybody's emails like we have. I mean, you have 2 days to get this back to us. Why can't we do that?
We can try, Christy, but I I can tell you that you're looking at maybe 25% back in 2 days. And again, that doesn't give us a transitioning time. That doesn't give us the transitioning time for all of it. You know, you realize we still have bus drivers driving out food. We have, you know, we have everything.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about let's get the results back so then we can see where we're at and which grades we want to bring back. I mean, we're not deciding that tonight. I'm not going to have everybody out here decide which ones that we're going to do because I'm not going to agree to submit this plan on the learning portal right now. I think we need to come back to that and after we get answers as far as, you know, how many kids are coming back in each grade and those kinds of things. And if teachers are truly in touch with their students, they should be able to get that back within that couple of days. I just, that's my expectation. And I don't think it's a hard thing that we're asking.
One suggestion I would have too is every day we get a text in the morning from a teacher explaining what's going to be happening for daily, what time the meets are, all this kind of stuff. Sorry, I can hear myself echoing. But I mean, include that. Get the survey. Get every single one of the teachers saying, "Hey, by the way, there is a survey going out. That's very important. We need your answers," and kind of go from there. I think that would definitely help. I mean, on the morning message.
Is that something that you think can be done?
I think it can be done. We can try to get things out. Our experience is trying to get the surveys back, even well-intended, is very difficult to get done in that fast turnaround. So I think we will make an effort to do that. But once again, getting the surveys back, if you want that back for making decisions, this is a short turnaround. If they were going to do this, it would have been nice for them to give us a little more planning time that it was coming. It would have been nice to have little, you know what I mean?
I agree with that, and I know that it's, you know, we're asking a lot of everyone to do that, but this is a critical decision that we need to make, and it's not a light one that we want to make, you know, without input about how many kids are actually going to come back. And I think that, I mean, let's pick up the phone, let's call them then, and let's do it verbally over the phone. I mean, how many, you know, the students and stuff, how many families do we have? You know, each 30 kids in a class. Is it really a lot for a teacher to help out with this? I mean, I realize that it's asking a lot of them, and I'm not saying that they'd have all the time in the world, but I mean, that's what we need. That's what we need to be able to bring kids back to with proper, you know, I know that's popular, and I know I'm catching a lot for that asking, but I think, am I asking too much? Do you guys agree with that or do you not?
I'll just throw in there real quick, and I'm sorry to be the advocate or the devil's advocate here, but I'll throw.
I understand what you're saying. I know that there's so many problems and issues and stuff like that, but you know what? We need to do better, and this is doing better.
And we are going to do better, Christy. I mean, we remember it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks and 4 days that we got. I mean, we're asking teachers to teach, right? We're asking them to continue giving us a solid instructional model, right? And we're also, I mean, if we're going to be adding more to them, and remember that we also have, we're going to have to give them time. So if we're going to be doing this transition, you know, the state mandate, or not mandate, but the state guidelines say that we have 2 days of time. Putting all these wheels in motions we're basically putting them at a standstill. We're basically, you know, right now is not, I'm just going to say it.
But are you thinking that we're still wanting to go back January 4th?
I'm sorry, repeat
That's
that.
not what we're doing. I'm not asking to go back January 4th right now. What I'm asking for is where people are at.
If we're not coming, you have a lot of feedback going on, Christy.
I know.
If we're not coming back,
My mic up.
You know what? How about this? Can we continue this discussion until another Zoom meeting sometime on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say, if we're not coming back the 4th and all the information you want, I mean, we can get that for you. And we'll get the survey out right away. If it's just the survey that you want, absolutely. We'll get that out. I promise you I'll get it out by
Monday.
We'll get it.
Monday because I think that we should be able to make those decisions to get that back to them and figure out what we need to do to get these kids back.
Okay, I apologize. I thought you wanted to go to school right away,
I
January.
do want to go to school right away. I do want to see them back on the 4th of January.
I have to close out here to go in here.
But if the
We're
information,
having a lot of technical difficulties at this point here. Everybody. I just want to, okay, Terry, what are your thoughts? Vicky, what are your guys' all thoughts on that? Am I alone in my thoughts on that? I mean, you guys need to input,
Absolutely not.
please.
I get it. I've never wanted to discount, downplay what our staff has done. We're a very capable staff, a lot of committed staff, a lot of great staff that have put the kids first. The thing that changed it for me, and even that 10 days to get the kids back on January 4th would be big for me. After I seen the number of kids that are failing, that's alarming. That's a big number. That's a jump that I don't like seeing, and it's not good. And is it a big ask? Absolutely. Do I think they can do it? Absolutely. And we should want to do it. We need to get them back. 10 days, it seems like it's inconsequential, but every day we can get our kids back here in front of their teacher is paramount, in my opinion. Absolutely has to be done, and we need to try and make that happen.
I'm going to be going out, you guys.
Here's what I would propose. I think we need more information. I think getting the survey data back, getting information back from the commissioner. I don't meet with them again until Monday. It's like 4 to 5. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Monday's a realistic deadline for us to get the amount of work done we need, not because of our work line, because of what other people are going to be able to give to us. I don't think it's realistic. I really don't. And so then we're going to meet and you're not going to have what you wanted or needed anyways. So I think that I need to get information out to the Department of Ed and be able to get feedback back from them. I need to have that second meeting with the commissioner to get that information. I think I hear your frustration. I get it. But I think that we need to have the planning time. We need to collect the information. You asked us a lot of good questions. We need time to follow up on that and get that information back to you.
What's the worst thing that could happen to us if we wanted to make a local decision like Christy's talking about, take some of that back and do what we as a board decide? What are we looking at?
Yeah, that's what my question was thinking too, was who's going to police us if we just go ahead and do it?
I mean, we've been told it would be mandated before. There's no mandate. There's schools that are open and doing what they're doing with 50 cases per 1,000. They're still doing what they're doing.
Well, I handed you out that sheet ahead of time to give you an idea when we say that. You look at those cases that the other districts had, and I'm sorry for you at home that are watching this, that is not the case.
I'm going to be going out. I got 1%.
You can jump online to close the meeting if you want.
Oh, can you not get me a?
You look at the staff, you look across that, and we have areas across the districts across our region, Northwestern region. And you've got, it has that first column is the number of students enrolled. And you're going to see a discrepancy in ours because number enrolled in ADMs is different. So number enrolled, 699. But you look at the number of students they have enrolled, and then school certified staff. And then you start looking about how many students were positive, or how many students they have. And then how many students were positive. And then how many were you contact tracing? So throughout the year, how many students were contact traced? So I went through the list and went, okay, that includes those that were maybe said that they were bringing their kids in to be tested. How many were close contacts? How many were positives? So you were contact tracing them somehow throughout the year. They're on your list. And then out of those, how many missed student days, attendance days? So then there's that list. So if you notice under ours, we had 148 students, 1,905 days missed. And then quarantine positive, that's staff and students together. And then staff that were contact traced. And then you look at days of missed work, 1,021 days. Now you notice that some of those days reported were very different. Some of them had a little bit higher number of staff, like, I'm gonna give you an example of, I won't say the name of the community, but they had 23 staff and they only had 130 days. That would mean that maybe a lot of their staff maybe had more, that they went and did more testing. So there was fewer days. Maybe they did a lot of 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days. So their staff, maybe they had more testing. They might not have had as many positives. They might not have had as many close contacts. We had a lot of close contacts. As I told you, we had 4 childcares in our community close. So, it depends on where you had, but look at how much we had. So I don't think that, schools, are doing whatever they want to do. Why are we following the rules? For me, I brought you back to this. We have an executive order that tells us that we need to abide by a safe learning plan. I'm not. You go rogue and you do whatever you want to do and you don't follow an executive order and you're a school board that took an oath. I have enough ethical, I'm bound by ethics. Our principals are bound by ethics. You're bound by ethics. And we got a COVID, a pandemic going on. And yes, things are getting better. And you're going to intentionally stray from that. It's not a good practice. Something goes wrong. We have somebody who gets ill or fatally ill, and then we strayed from the plan. I would never recommend we do that. It's a poor choice. Now, what Christy talked about was finding ways to be in the gray. What we talked about was starting at 2 different sites, finding ways that make it works for us within the plan. Heck yeah. Pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits. Absolutely. But point blank, violating an executive order or violating the safe learning plan knowingly, I don't care if our neighbors are doing it or you think the neighbors are doing it. You don't go clean somebody else's backyard unless yours is clean. And we keep our backyards clean.
Yeah, no, I get it. It was just a question. I know we talked about it being ethical or not, but just a question.
How many kids are in the building now anyway?
Which building, Christy?
Both.
28 in mine a day.
Ogama, we probably have around 60.
So for
Because
us,
we have the childcare.
That's including childcare?
That's including the childcare.
Even though we
We've
had
had a lot
88
of,
registered?
we had 88 registered, but we have quite a few families that have been out in quarantine. So that's lowered our number, but we do have some other families that have been coming in once or twice a week as well.
Is that children? Just kids.
That's just children, not children and staff.
So I recommend that we get time to answer the questions, figure out where's gray, what can we do, what boundaries can we push, where do we get what we want, and we need to get the kids back as soon as possible. I agree 100%. But we need a little bit more time.
So I get
One
what
thing that I
Christy's
don't-
saying about the turnaround time, and maybe Monday is too short. I don't know. You all are saying that. And so if that's the reality, do you think by like 23rd? Because I also know the flip is true. Oh, sorry. I also feel like the flip is true. If you have a survey out there and you let it sit out there for 2 weeks, I'm guilty. I forget about it. If I open it and I don't do it right then and there, you forget about it. So maybe, and would that give you information that you would need to like get moving on this? Because I'm assuming no one's working on any of this between what, the 24th and the 2nd? When do the teachers come back to work?
The 4th.
the fourth.
4th.
But that's precisely why I'm asking the teachers to help with this.
Right, exactly.
Because I think that we can do it. I think that there's ways for us to do it and for us to get the information back. Because if they want them just in school as much as we do, then we'll all find a way to get that done.
And I think we can ask them to, I think we will have staff that will be able to help. I think being able to say, everybody take your own kids and putting it only on them. I think we will have staff volunteer to help. I think everybody will do it as a team and we'll figure out how to get it out there. And that's the way we do things. We have staff that will help. I have no doubt. And we will have that, there's no doubt. So I think that even Wednesday is more reasonable to do a touch base on Wednesday, to do a let's review what we have in the survey so far. If you wanted to do a review, that gives us more time. Even, I think if we did Wednesday as our first, as we did the deadline on Wednesday, we'd at least get a few more days, Wednesday morning. That would be helpful.
Isn't our secretarial staff out on Wednesday morning?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Christmas.
Our last day is the 22nd.
Yeah. We have just school Monday, Tuesday.
I mean, we can see how much data we get between now and Tuesday, but this is the timing. This is what I was saying earlier. The transition time is for two reasons. We're up against a wall here, and when we saw what the governor sent us, we believed fully that he sent us while a curveball, something we could hit out of the park. This is bad timing right now as far as Christmas vacation goes. And we're looking, and I agree with Vicky. I'm the same way, Vicky. You send me something, I'll put it off until the very last day. But you add Christmas vacation into that, and then I'm really not thinking about anything. So, I get what you guys are saying. We want them back too, but bear in mind, we're going to get them back, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to get them back. We're just asking for a little transition time. We're asking to get this to do it, get them back and do it right.
And I think everybody's just excited. We got good news for bringing kids back. I think everybody's just trying to brainstorm like, hey, how can we do this most efficiently and get them back and where they need to be?
Yep, I get that. That makes sense.
And I guess the other part that I'm coming back with is that the more we ask of them, the greater chance of them saying no. I mean, I don't want them to say no. I want to be able to make that decision here and then say, this is what we're going to do. And yes, I get that we have to do it on the 19th. And I understand that. And I'm willing to do that. I'm not happy about it. I don't want it to happen. I'd rather see us on the 4th or the 14th, or the 7th even. But I want to see, the more that we ask, the less that we're able to do. That's what it's been my experience. Our experience here, if we ask them and say, can we do this? And they say no.
Yeah, it draws attention to something, whereas if you just make a plan. So are you talking about like the both elementaries and both schools? Yeah, like that should just be our plan.
Adopt the plan.
Yeah.
Those are pretty important, evidently.
And it makes sense. It might be in the gray zone, like you said, but it makes sense. And it seems as though we're abiding by a statement.
That's the gray area. But why ask if we're in the gray
No,
area?
that's what I'm saying. Just, that's your plan. Just make,
Because
as
I
a
have to
district,
put it in
just
the
make them.
I have to put it in the learning portal,
Yeah.
and then they can take it out. And so,
Sure.
yeah, and that would be harder on our families. So.
We'll get the survey out. We'll get it out right away. We'll put our full faith effort into it to try to get information back to you guys as soon as possible. What we'll probably try to do then is share the survey results with you, probably give you updated daily between now and Tuesday afternoon. And then we'll roll from there if that's how you guys want it. I shouldn't do the shout out kind of deal, but I do have a secretary that just texted me who's following the meeting stating that she will come in and work during the break or work from home during the break so that she can continue following up on that. So, that is the team mentality.
Exactly what I'm looking for. And I appreciate that very much. And I think that's, just that extra effort.
Yeah. And then,
our number one thing here is our kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I want you guys to know, when we do this, and in the letter that we sent out today, all three of us sent out today, this was a shock to our teachers. It's it is a team mentality here. I mean, we are one team, one goal. You know, we follow, you know, and it's all the way through. So we can get the data. We'll get the data. You guys know that we did it in the fall. It was the reason I was not so easy to jump on board and say, yeah, we'll get you that by Monday, is because we did it in the fall, and it was a little difficult. So
it's a little more critical, and I think parents understand now. And in September they didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was, you know, where things
Yeah.
were. But now I think it's more critical, and parents are very much in tune with what's happening.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can.
And motivated.
And I think
And
with
the
our
ones-
daily check-ins in the elementary, that will help if we can get that information out as well. So hopefully that'll get families answering it sooner.
And all of us sitting here can do our part too. We all can talk to people or share it on your personal Facebook and just remind people to get their surveys in.
Absolutely. That's awesome, Eric, Lori, Lisa. Let's try and get it done. Get it done as quickly as possible so we can be responsive and try and get something put together for our kids.
And I'll submit my questions under another district's name. I'll make up some other district like.
I have suggestions, Lisa.
They'll never know it's us.
Yeah, I got a suggestion too, but I'm not going to say it out in public that we're still here. So, yeah, I mean, it is such a controversial subject, and it's so hard because every kid is affected, and you know, tears at your heartstrings when you see a kid struggling so much. And my reason for wanting to come back on the 4th, and I'll just put it out there too, is that I think by the end of the semester is 2 weeks. That gives them 2 weeks to get their grades back up. We had such failure rate that it was alarming. And if we had that that, you know, in-person hybrid prior to that 18th, it would be ideal for them, and they wouldn't have that on their record and having to repeat, you know, grade or a class or something like that. That was my motivation, because I really think that our kids need that. I got experience with that. So that's where I was coming from.
That makes sense. And just so you guys know, I mean, some of the reasons we're opening up the buildings is so we can get kids in to help, and it's been working. The failure rate would be lower. Our interventionists have been doing a bang-up job with getting kids what they need for that one-on-one. So it will be lower.
They need to reach more. So anyway, that's where we're coming from. That's where I think that everybody's heart is at. And so with that, I think we'll end the discussion, and we'll also, do you want to make that for a Wednesday meeting? You guys okay with that? No? Yeah?
Do you want us to do a meeting? Do you want to do a meeting? Do you want to do a data review meeting, or do you want us to send out survey results? There's all kinds of ways we can get the information to you.
Right, and I think we still have to meet to discuss this portal plan prior to vacation.
Okay.
And I think they need to help and approve that prior to that, right?
Yeah, because then we can do that either on the 8th, or we can do that on, I think our families would feel better if there was a approval, because we'll have had the COVID team meeting, we'll have had the district's meeting, and then if you want to do that, but we have the 8th in place if you want to do a formal approval of the plan.
Well, I think
But then
was
that
kind of
cuts you back for your
Yeah.
staff prep, right? Because you're back on the 4th. So you're gonna lose, what, 3 days?
Mhm. I think families want to know.
Would you guys rather know? I mean, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
ahead of time.
I would assume so.
Because then you guys are gonna be coming back from Christmas break with a pretty solid.
Yep.
Know which direction to move and where to start prepping, right? I mean,
We'll do it Wednesday morning. Okay.
No, Wednesday morning.
Same. I can't do Wednesday morning.
You can.
No, I can't. Wednesday, What other time is good for you guys? Wednesday night? I mean, I hope nobody's
gone.
traveling.
I am.
You're traveling Wednesday night?
Mhm.
What time?
I'm leaving Wednesday at noon. Tuesday night?
Well, that just gets you one day to get the results in.
Well, yeah, but Lisa would be an
Although-
hour. You'd be able to talk to the
I-
department already by then. We do it Tuesday evening.
Okay. Or Eric can do it too.
Yeah, I
Can
just
Eric
wanted
give us
Eric-
the information? I mean, if you can't do it, Tuesday nights, I'm fine with Tuesday night too, that's fine. So you want to make that Tuesday night, okay? At 7? Okay. Can't hear you. What?
January 7th?
No, I'm talking the 22nd.
Oh, next week.
You mean at 6:30 in the morning, right, Christy?
Yeah. Yeah. You know
Yeah.
that. I'm
It's
right
our
on.
favorite time.
But you know what? I would get up and get there for that.
You'll get up for that one, Christy? Perfect.
I would.
There we
Tuesday
go.
at 5, Tuesday at 6.
6:30 in the morning. Christy said it here first. You guys all heard her.
John, when would you be able to make it? Tuesday night? What time Tuesday night?
Just say 7 o'clock,
6?
6,
6 weeks.
6 work.
Because it's already 9:15, guys. We gotta move it.
What day?
So Tuesday, the 22nd at 6 o'clock at night.
And it should be a quick meeting. I mean, it's not that we're gonna have. Oh, you're going to?
Christy, what's the purpose of the meeting? Do you just want to review data?
I want to know what the survey results are, and I want to actually decide which grades are coming back.
Yeah, what if we just decided to do give you what we have by then? I don't know. I mean, I know you guys are hopeful. I don't know that we'll have all of the data by then. I really don't. I mean, it won't.
I have faith in the community.
I do too. I do too, Christy. But you need to remember, we have people that have blocked our number, so they're not hearing from us right now. I mean, these are the realities.
I guess those are the ones that don't get input. But you know, I think for a majority of the people that really want to see this happen, they will be in touch.
I'm just telling you, Christy.
I'm a Christmas faith. Come on,
Here's what we do.
miracle in here.
What if we give you the data and we give you the recommendation and we just send it out via an email, and that eliminates the need for a meeting, and then you can email individually your responses. Don't email them back as a group, and then we can get your input and go that route. But I am telling you right now, these things that I'm getting, I am getting public comments right now, by the way, but you know,
I'm sure you are, and I'm sure we'll get a bunch of them after too. I know that probably the majority of people aren't happy with me right now, but you know.
Let's do it that way, Christy. We'll give you the data. We'll tell you how many people have responded, you know, and we'll go from there. If I'm wrong, Christy, I will be the first to admit it. I'll buy you the biggest pop you want for the next meeting. But I do expect them to
What do you mean? I want a case.
there you go. But if I'm right, I want the same thing, by the way. So,
Yeah.
but let's do it that way.
And
Let's do it that way. We can get whatever data we have available to you, because it sounds like everybody's going to be busy, right? So,
well, the thing is I wanted the community to know prior to going into our Christmas break.
yeah, and
I don't want them to be able to plan for what that is going to look like, and you know, instead of popping that in on them a week and a half before.
Yeah, no, and that's the big thing we're going to do. That's why we wanted to send out that survey tomorrow right away, and we want to make the announcement of what we're planning to do, and we want to highlight the fact that everything they give us on that survey is what we need and what we need to do this right.
And again, just a suggestion, like, you know, every teacher, when they start the beginning of a class, just say, hey, kids, remind your parents that they need to do this. Most parents are probably in the room. You know what I mean? put it in the header, put it in whatever. I mean, make it a constant deal, and I think we'll get a lot of responses because there's a lot of people that want back.
Yep, and our EC6 teachers are really good about that. They'll send it out right away. We'll have to revise the survey's been started. We'll have to revise it, make sure it's good. We'll have Mrs. Weber look at it, Mrs. Johnson look at it tomorrow morning, and then we'll send it out. We'll send it out. Like I said, I'll get it out there. We'll get it out there. Our team will get it out there by 10:30 in the morning.
The purpose of that meeting, though, was to actually make a formal to that, so we can get that out to the I guess, if we do a Zoom meeting, I don't know. I would still like to see us get together and make that decision, whether we have to do it by call-in or whatever, because I want a solid decision going into the Christmas break.
What groups are coming back, you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Just schedule it for Tuesday night then, 6 or 7 o'clock, and we'll make it work.
And are you still
And
planning
if you can't,
the groups that are coming back to be the 19th?
Yeah, I think it's just to determine.
I just wanted to make sure in case we have teachers asking as well.
well, it's not ideal and it's not what I want. It's not what we want. It's something that we will, and I do get that we have the executive order in place and I fully understand that. I'd like to buck the system as much as we could, but I don't want to get us in trouble either. But I don't think that we need to ask them all the questions like, can we do this building or that building? Those kinds of things, I think we can take those kinds of decisions here. So that's the clarification pieces, I guess, that I want to get prior to Christmas break, heading out there. So Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. No, Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. It's late.
I think there's some value in having that stable approved. There's also value in being heard. I think there's some value in having a stable approved plan and people just knowing, staff, everybody, and just saying, yep, this is what we're going to do and we're done. So we'll try to get some answers and try to get some things. So if you do think of other questions you have, let me know. Just, give me a call or text me or email. And we'll try to get those addressed.
All right, end of discussion. Thank you, guys. Succeeding meetings, data review, January 8th. Special board, well, actually, we got a special board meeting December 22nd at 6 p.m. With that agenda item of deciding what's happening. Special board meeting reorganization following the data review. And regular school meeting. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Motion to adjourn at 20. Motion who?
Nick.
Motion by Nick, second.
I'll second, third, fourth, fifth that.
By Terry. Roll call, Vicky.
Yes.
Derek, Ellen.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
And Chris is yes. We are adjourned. Thank you. And thank you for everything. For everything.